Hello and welcome back to another stream. Today we're going to be doing some more reading. I don't think it's been too long since we last did a reading stream, but I want to make sure I keep them up. Last time, the last time I was a VTuber, I neglected my reading streams a little too much. So this time we're gonna keep up with it this time. There we go. Ooh, is that a hag? Oh. We're back to reading Ovid's Metamorphoses, which is a very intimidating name, but I promise you it just means transformations. Or perhaps that too is an intimidating name. It's like Animorphs, quite literally. People transform into animals in horrific and slow ways. But we're going to be reading this, and we're gonna see how it goes. I've read a little bit before since the last time we read this book, so I think we've just missed the death of Icarus, which oh well. Let me get as close as I can to my screen so I can see my own screen, and we're just gonna we're just gonna go into it. I don't know where the sentence where I finished last time. I probably got to here. Oh, I should probably cut my fingernails at some point. Oh well. Please do not judge. Let's see. I think, is this Dionysus they're talking about? Ah, Theseus. Or I wonder if I should pronounce it as Theseus, instead of Thee. I really don't know. But anyway, he's just beat the Minotaur, and he's, with the good help of the lovely Ariadne. However, he has, very rudely gone and abandoned her. He's not a very nice man. Hold on, I knocked my camera. The what? But let's go ahead. So he let's see. But on the shore of that island, he cruelly abandoned his companion. Ariadne, left all alone. Ah, I know what I forgot. My pen. That's what I had. Where is it? Did I throw it in this drawer? Be around here somewhere. No. Ah, there it is. Which looks a lot nicer than my finger. Ariadne, left all alone, was sadly lamenting her fate when Bacchus, this is Dionysus, the god of wine and madness, Bacchus put his arms around her and brought her his aid. He took the crown from her forehead and set it as a constellation in the sky to bring her eternal glory. Up through the thin air it soared, and as it flew, its jewels were changed into shining fires. They settled in position, still keeping the appearance of a crown, midway between the kneeling Hercules and Opicus, who grasps the snake. Constellations. Meanwhile, Daedalus, tired of Crete and of his long absence from home, was filled with longing for his own country. But he was shut in by the sea. Then he said, "The king may block my way by land or across the ocean, but the sky surely is open, and that is how we shall go. Minos may possess all the rest, but he does not possess the air." With these words, he set his mind to sciences never explored before, and altered the laws of nature. I guess we didn't read The Death of Icarus, or perhaps I forgot to move my bookmark and I'm rereading. You see, I have a terrible memory, and I forget things all the time, so if I've read this very recently, I don't know. Or there's a bit of a challenge here, because I'm very familiar with the text, so it's not a new story for me anyway. And I think everyone knows the story of Icarus, but here we go. He laid down a row of feathers, beginning with tiny ones and gradually increasing their length, so that the edge seemed to slope upwards. In the same way, the pipe which shepherds used to play is built upon from reeds, each slightly longer than the last. Then he fastened the feathers together in the middle with thread, and at the bottom with wax, which he had arranged in this way. He bent them round in a gentle curve to look like real birds' wings. His son Icarus stood beside him, and, not knowing that the materials he was handling were to endanger his life, laughingly captured the feathers which blew away in the wind, or softened the yellow wax with his thumb, and by his pranks hindered the marvellous work which his father engaged. That's an interesting twist on the story I've not actually heard. I've heard that it was wax all the same, there was no problem with it. But here it is suggesting that Icarus himself has sabotaged, unwittingly of course, the wax, which will lead to his demise. I don't quite like that twist, I think that's pointless, but whatever. When Daedalus had put the finishing touches to his invention, he raised himself into the air, balancing his body on his two wings, and there he hovered, moving his feathers up and down. Then he prepared his son to fly too. "I warn you, Icarus," he said, "you must follow a course midway between earth and heaven, in case the sun should scorch your feathers if you go too high, or the water make them heavy if you are too low. Fly halfway between the two, and pay no attention to the stars, to Bootes, or Helice, or Orion with his drawn sword. Take me as your guide, and follow me." While he was giving Icarus these instructions on how to fly, Daedalus was at the same time fastening the novel wings on his son's shoulders. As he worked and talked, the old man's cheeks were wet with tears, and his fatherly affection made his hands tremble. He kissed his son, whom he was to never kiss again. Then, raising himself on his wings, flew in front, showing anxious concern for his companion, just like a bird who has brought her tender fledglings out of their nest in the treetops, and launched them in the air. He urged Icarus to follow close, and instructed him in the art that was to be his ruin, moving his own wings and keeping a watchful eye on those of his son behind him. Some fisher, perhaps, plying his quivering rod, some shepherd leaning on his staff, or a peasant bent over his plough handle, caught sight of them as they flew past, and stood stock still in astonishment, believing that these creatures who could fly through the air must be gods. Now, Juno's sacred isle of Samos lay on the left. Delos and Paros were already behind them, and Lebynthus was on their right hand, along with Calymne, rich in honey. When the boy Icarus began to enjoy the thrill of swooping boldly through the air, drawn on by his eagerness for the open sky, he left his guide and soared upwards, till he came too close to the blazing sun, and it softened the sweet-smelling wax that bound his wings together. The wax melted. Icarus moved his bare arms up and down, but without their feathers they had no purchase on the air. Even as his lips were crying his father's name, they were swallowed up in the deep blue waters which are called after him. The unhappy father, a father no longer, cried out, "Icarus! Icarus!" he called, "Where are you? Where am I to look for you?" As he was still calling Icarus, he saw the feathers on the water, and cursed his inventive skill. He laid his son to rest in a tomb, and the land took its name from that of the boy who was buried there. As Daedalus was burying the body of his ill-fated son, a chattering lapwing popped its head out of a muddy ditch, flapped its wings, and crowed with joy. At that time it was the only bird of its kind, and none like it had ever been seen before. The transformation had been a recent one, and a lasting reproach to Daedalus, for his sister, knowing nothing of fate's intentions, had sent her son, an intelligent boy of 12, to learn what Daedalus could teach him. This lad, observing the backbone of a fish, and taking it as a pattern, notched a series of teeth in a sharp iron blade, thus inventing the saw. He was the first, too, to fasten two iron arms together into one joint, so that while remaining equidistant, one arm might stand still, and the other... I'm not sure what he's describing here. Scissors? If I can turn the page. The other, a compass. Describe a circle around it. Daedalus was jealous, and flung his nephew headlong down from Minerva's sacred citadel. Then he spread a false report that the boy had fallen over, but Pallas, who looked favourably upon clever men, caught the lad as he fell, and changed him into a bird, clothing him with feathers in mid-air. The swiftness of intellects he once displayed was replaced by swiftness of wing and foot. His name remained the same as before. However, this bird does not soar high into the air, nor does it build its nest on branches in the treetops. Rather, it flutters along the ground and lays its eggs in the hedgerows, for it is afraid of heights, remembering its fall in the days of long ago. Did they name the bird? They don't name the bird. It's a bird that doesn't fly very high. I'm not sure which bird it is. Is it a chicken? I don't know. Where's my bottle of water? I'm not sure what bird they're talking about. See, these days we're so out of touch with nature that we really don't know a lot of creatures. We don't know the names of plants and trees and birds and other animals. We're very lost to these things. But the people of the Bronze Age living in ancient Rome, they would have been very familiar with all these common birds. And they would have known instantly what kind of bird flies low to the ground and buries its eggs underground. Daedalus, I'm going to zoom in a bit more actually. I think I can get away with that. Daedalus, weary with wandering, had now found refuge in Etna's land, and Cocalus, who had taken up arms in answer to his request for aid, had won a reputation for clemency. Athens now ceased to pay her mournful tribute, thanks to Theseus's victory. The temples were decked with garlands of flowers, and the people were singing hymns to the warrior Minerva, to Jove, and to the other gods, honouring them with gifts, with offerings of incense, and with the sacrifices which they had promised. Rumour, swiftly travelling, had spread Theseus's fame through the various cities of Argos, and the people of rich Achaia sought his help in their hour of peril. Among the rest, Calydon begged and besought him to come to his aid, though it had its own hero, Malaga. The request was occasioned by a boar, which was at once the servant and the avenging minister of Diana. The goddess... Oops, switch my hand. The goddess was angry with the people, for, according to the tale, King Oeneus, out of the bountiful harvests of a good year, made offerings of the first fruits of corn to Ceres, poured a libation of wine in honour of Bacchus, and one of olive oil in honour of Minerva. First the gods of the farmers, and then all the gods in heaven, received the honours they desired, except Leto's daughter. She was alone. This is Diana, yes, Artemis. She was alone. She alone was neglected. Oh, I've got to move the camera up a little. I keep knocking it. It's making the screen bounce. Can't go that low. I can move this up a little bit. Among the people... She alone was neglected, and her altars were the only ones left without an offering of incense. Now, the gods feel anger too. I shall not submit to this without protest. Men may say that I went unhonoured, but they will not say I went unavenged, cried Diana, and she let loose a wild boar in Oeneus's land to punish him for having scorned her. This boar was as big as the bulls found in Gracia Paris, bigger than the Sicilian ones. There was a fiery gleam in its bloodshot eyes, and it held its neck high and stiff, Its hide bristled with hairs that stuck straight out like spears. It bellowed harshly, the hot foam flecking its broad shoulders, and its teeth were like elephants' tusks. Fire issued from its jaws, the leaves were set alight by its breath. This monster trampled down the tender shoots of the growing crops. Or again, when the harvest had fulfilled the farmers' hopes, it turned their joy to tears by ravaging the fields and breaking down corn in the ear. The threshing floor and barns waited in vain. That's something in my mouth. The threshing floor and barns waited in vain for the promised harvests. Heavy vine clusters with their trailing leaves were strewn on the ground among berries and branches from the evergreen olive. The boar launched furious attacks on the flocks as well. Neither shepherds nor dogs could save them, nor could the fierce bulls defend the herds. People fled in all directions, thinking themselves safe only when protected by the walls of the city, till Malaga and a handful of picked men banded themselves together in a desire to win fame and glory. I thought it was Hercules who defeated the Caledonian boar. Perhaps that was a different boar. There were the twin sons of Tyndareus, one renowned as a boxer and the other as a horseman. Ah, these are the Gemini twins, right? Right? Castor and Pollux, no? Maybe I'm thinking of someone else. Jason, who had built the first ship, Theseus, and Pirithous, inseparable companions, and the two sons of Theseus. Aphaerus' sons were there. Lynceus and the swift Idas, Canis too, who had once been a woman. The warrior Leucippus, Acastus, noted for his javelin throwing, Hippothus and Dryas, along with Phoenix, Amyntas' son, and the two sons of Actor, and Phyleus, who had come from Eli's. Telamon from Roblox joined them, and Peleus, the father of great Achilles, as well as the son of Ares, and Iolaus from Boeotia. Eurytion was with them too, a man full of vigour, and Echion, whom none could surpass in running. The Locrian Lelex and Penepius and Hylaeus, Theus, Hippasus, and Nestor, then still in the prime of life. We're getting very close to the Trojan War here. We've got Nestor, he's alive, but still young. There was also the contingent, which Hippocon had sent from ancient Amalcle, and Penelope's father-in-law, Laertes, came, accompanied by the Arcadian and Chaos. The wise seer Ampycus' son was there. What is it with old books and huge lists of names? Ampycus' son was there, and Amphiaraus, who had not yet fallen a victim to his wife's treachery. The girl warrior from Tegea, the pride of Lycaean Grove, came too. A polished buckle fastened the neck of her garment, and her hair was simply done, gathered in a single knot. An ivory quiver, containing her arrows, hung from her shoulder, and rattled as she moved, while she carried her bow as well in her left hand. Such was her attire. She had features which, in a boy, would have been called girlish, but in a girl, they were like a boy's. As soon as we got the ancient Greek tomboys, as soon as the hero of Calydon saw her, he fell in love, though the gods would not sanction it, and was fired with secret desire. Happy indeed the man whom she thinks worthy of her hand. He sighed. He was too modest, and had no time to say more, for there was a matter of greater urgency on hand, the mighty battle with the boar. A dense forest of trees, which had never felt the woodsman's axe, rose up from the level plain, affording a wide view over the sloping fields. When the warriors reached this wood, some of them spread out their hunting nets, some unleashed the dogs, while others, looking for danger, followed the trail of the boar's footprints, in the depths of a sunken hollow into which rainwater drained from above, grew pliant willows and thin sedge, marsh grasses and osiers, and tall bulrushes rising from a carpet of short reeds. The boar was driven out from this retreat, and rushed furiously into the midst of its foes. like a lightning flash, struck out from the clouds as they are dashed together. Trees were brought down by its charge, and there was a sound of crashing as the animal blundered against their trunks. The young heroes raised a shout and grasped their weapons in their strong hands, holding them poised for the throw, with broad iron tips thrust forward. The boar rushed on, scattering the dogs as they tried to block its furious onset, tossing the yapping beasts out of the way with its sidelong blows from its tusks. Echion, hurled the first spear, but it missed its mark and merely scarred the back of a maple tree. The next missile looked as if it would lodge in the boar's back, but Jason of Pagasae, who threw it, put too much force behind the blow, and his spear overshot the mark. Then Mopsus, son of Ampycus, cried out, "O Apollo, as I have worshipped you in the past, and do so still, grant that my spear may reach its mark. Let there be no mistake." The god granted his prophet's prayer as far as possible, for Mopsus struck the boar, but failed to wound it. As the weapon flew through the air, Diana had stolen away its iron tip, and only the wooden shaft, robbed of its point, reached its destination. But the boar's fury was roused, and blazed up as fiercely as the fire of a thunderbolt. Sparks flashed from its eyes, and it breathed out flames from its breast. Then, with unswerving attack, the murderous brutes charged straight down on the band of young warriors, just as a massive rock, shot from the sling of a catapult, goes hurling through the air towards enemy walls, or towers packed with soldiers. Eupolemus and Pelagon, who were keeping guard on the right, were flung to the ground, but their friends snatched them up from where they lay. Enesimus, son of Hippocoon, was not so lucky. He did not escape the boar's deadly tusks. Trembling with fear, he was preparing to run away, when the sinews behind his knees were slashed, and his muscles gave way beneath him. Nestor of Pylos, too, might well have perished before the time of the Trojan War, had he not used his spear as a vaulting pole, and leaped into the branches of a nearby tree. That's pretty acrobatic, my. Whence he looked down from a safe height on the foe he had escaped. The boar fiercely sharpened its tusks on the bark of an oak. Then, confident in its newly wedded weapons, returned to its disastrous attacks, ripping open the thigh of the warrior Hippasus with its curved teeth. But now the twin brothers, Castor and Pollux, haha, I was right, it is indeed the Dioscuri, the Gemini twins, Castor and Pollux themselves. Let's drink some water. Castor and Pollux, not yet raised to be stars in the heavens, rode up together, a striking pair on their horses, whiter than snow, and both together sent their sharp javelins quivering through the air. They would have wounded the bristling brutes, had it not retreated into the dark woods, where neither horse nor javelin could penetrate. Telamon went after it, but in his eagerness he was careless of where he was going, tripped over the root of a tree, and fell headlong. While Peleus was helping him to his feet, the girl from Tegea fitted an arrow to her bowstring. Then, bending the bow, she sent the shaft speeding through the air. It grazed the top of the boar's back, and stuck just below his ear, staining the bristles with a thin trickle of blood. Malaga was as pleased at the girl's success as she was herself. He was the first, so it is thought, to see the blood, and, having seen it, was the first to point it out to his friends. "You will be honoured for your prowess, as you deserve," he told Atalanta. The men, flushed with shame, and urged each other on, shouting words of encouragement, and hurling their weapons without any concerted plan of attack. But just as they were so numerous, the missiles were rendered ineffective and prevented from reaching their mark. Then the Arcadian Ancaeus, armed with his two-headed axe, rushed furiously upon his fate, crying, "See how far superior to a woman's weapons are those of a man! Make way for me, even though Leto's daughter herself protects this boar with her own arrows. Nonetheless, in spite of Diana, my hand will destroy it." With these proud and boastful words, he raised his two-headed axe in both hands and stood on tiptoe. Bending forward, poised to strike, the boar charged down upon this daring foe, and aiming its tusks at the upper part of his loins, gored him in that most vital spot. Ancaeus collapsed. His inner organs slipped and trailed from his body in a mass of blood. The earth was soaked with crimson stream. Periphas, Ixion's son, rushed against the brute, brandishing his spears in his strong hand. But Theseus, son of Aegeus, called to him, "Heart of my heart, dearer than myself to me, stop at a safe distance. We can show our courage from afar. His hot-headed valour did Ancaeus no good." As he spoke, he hurled his cornel spear with its heavy bronze tip, but though it was well thrown and would have reached its mark, it was stopped by the leafy branch of an oak. Jason, too, threw his javelin, but by bad luck his aim swerved, and the weapon killed an innocent hound. Passing through its thigh and pinning it to the ground, Meleager, son of Oanus, threw two spears, with very different effects, for the first struck into the ground, but the other lodged right in the middle of the boar's back. Without loss of time, while the beast was furiously twisting its body round and round, its jaws slavering with a mixture of foam and fresh blood, the hero who had dealt the wound came up close to the animal and roused his foe to fury, before finally burying his shining spear in its shoulder. His friends cheered with delight and made a rush to shake the victor by the hand. They gazed with wonder at the huge beast that covered so much ground as it lay, and convinced that it was still unsafe to go near, each one of them stained his own weapon in the blood of the boar. Meleager himself set his foot on its monstrous head, and then, turning to Atalanta, "Take the spoil I have secured, Lady of Nonacrus," he said, "and let me share my glory with you." Thereupon he gave her as a trophy the bristling hide and the boar's head, and with its magnificent tusks she was as pleased with the giver of the gift as with the gift itself. But the others were jealous, and a murmur ran through the whole company. Then the two sons of Festinus shook their fists and shouted, "Come now, put down those spoils, woman! Do not interfere with our claims to honour. Do not let confidence in your beauty mislead you either, in case your love-sick benefactor should prove unable to help you." Then they took away the spoils from Atalanta, and deprived Meleager of the right to present them to her. The son of Mars could not endure this. Bursting with rage, gnashing his teeth, he cried, "You robbers, stealing another man's glory! I shall teach you the difference between threats and action." And he ran his sword through the heart of Plesippus, who was standing by, all unsuspecting. It was an abominable deed. Toxius hesitated as to what he should do, for he wished to avenge his brother, but at the same time he was afraid of sharing his fate. Meleager did not suffer him to hesitate for long, for he plunged his weapon, still reeking with the murder of one brother, into the warm blood of the other. Althea had been told of her son's victory, and was already carrying offerings to the temple of the gods, when she saw her brothers being brought home dead. The city was filled with her wailing, and she gave vent to her clamorous grief. She beat her breast and changed the gold-embroidered robe she wore for black clothing. However, when she had heard who had killed her brothers, she forgot her grief and turned from tears to concentrate on revenge. I'll drink some more water. This is entertaining. It's a bit too hot though, frankly. It's another hot day. It's been hot all week. There was a log, which the three sister goddesses had placed on the fire at the time when this Althea, Phestius's daughter, was lying in bed with her baby newly born. As they spun the threads of destiny, holding them firmly under the thumbs, they said, "To the log and to the newborn child we assign the same span of years." As soon as the goddess had recited their verses and left the house, the mother snatched the blazing log from the fire and flung cold water on it, for long had it been hidden away in the depths of the house, and its preservation had kept the young hero safe. Now his mother brought it out, called for chips of pine wood and shavings, and when these had been piled up, kindled the flames that were to be her son's undoing. Then 4 times she tried to throw the log on the flames, and 4 times she stopped herself. Her affection for her son fought against her feelings for her brothers. Divided loyalty tore her heart in opposite directions. Often her face grew pale, with fear at the thought of such a crime. Often blazing with anger made her eyes sparkle with fire. At times, her expression was cruel and threatening. At others, it could have been thought to be full of compassion. The heart of her fierce rage dried up her tears, yet still the tears welled up. And like a ship which feels the double pull as wind and tides draw in different directions, as it sways uncertainly with both, so Phestius's daughter was swayed by her shifting emotions, and her anger alternately died away and flared up again. However, her sisterly affection began to get the better of her feelings as a mother, and in order to satisfy her brother's ghosts with blood, by a guilty deed she saved herself from guilt. Oh, the pages are stuck together here, a bit too... Oh, I've torn it, whoopsie daisy. This is quite a cheap book. I think it's a penguin. It's a penguin, but it's not a very good penguin. I don't have a year on it. They never print the years in these things. When the deadly flames were burning steadily, "Let this funeral pyre consume the child I bore," she cried. Then, taking the fateful... Hang on a minute, I keep kicking my camera. This is not good. It's gonna be completely off calibration if I do that. Then, taking the fateful logs in her murderous hands, the wretched woman stood before the funeral altars and prayed, "Goddess free who preside over punishments, furies, behold this unnatural sacrifice by which I am at once avenging and committing crime. Death must atone for death, wickedness must be piled on wickedness, slaughter upon slaughter, till this accursed household perish under its accumulation of woe. Shall Oannes continue to enjoy the company of his virtuous son, while Phestius is deprived of his? Better that both should have cause to mourn. Only do you, my brothers, ghosts but recently descended to the shades, recognize my devotion, and welcome this offering provided at such a cost, the child of my womb, born to my sorrow. Alas, where do I rush so fast? Oh, my brothers, forgive a mother. My hands cannot carry out their purpose. I confess my son has deserved to die, but I cannot bear that I should be the author of his death. Will he then go unpunished? Will he live a victorious hero, exulting in this very explicit ruling the kingdom of Caledon, while you lie dead, nothing but chill ghosts and a few ashes? No, that I cannot endure. Let the guilty wretch perish as well, and carry with him to the grave of his father's hopes, his kingdom, and his ruined country. But where is the affection a mother should feel for her son? Where are the loving ties that ought to bind parents to their children? Where the where the anguish I endured through 10 long months. Oh, my son, how much better had I allowed you to burn in those flames when you were a baby. You received your life from my hands, but now you will die the death you have deserved. Accept the reward for what you have done. Give me back the life I have twice bestowed on you. Once when you were born, and again when I snatched the log from the fire. Either that, or send me to join my brothers in the tomb. I want to, yet I cannot. What am I to do? At one moment I see before my eyes my brothers' wounds and a vision of their dreadful murder. The next, my love for my son, the name of mother. Break my resolution. Poor wretch that I am. It will be an evil thing, my brothers, if you triumph, yet triumph none the less, provided that I too may follow you to the shades, you and the son I sacrifice to solace you. With these words, she flung the fatal log, with unsteady hands, into the heart of the flame, turning her face away as she did so. The very wood groaned and seemed to groan, as it was kindled and set alight by unwilling fire. Malaga, though he knew nothing of what was happening, and was not even present, was scorched by that flame, and felt a hidden fire consuming his vitals. He's got heartburn. He endured his agony with indomitable courage, but still he grieved that he should meet such so inglorious an end, that his death involved no bloodshed, and declared Ancaeus lucky to have suffered the wounds he did. For the last time... Hang on, I know why I'm knocking the camera so much. My chair is hitting it. Let me move out of the way a little. See if that helps. And declared Ancaeus lucky to have suffered the wounds he did. For the last time he called upon his aged father, his brothers, and loving sisters, cried out his wife's name, groaning as he did so, and perhaps his mother's too. As the fire blazed up, so did his agony. Then both died down again, and were extinguished together. Gradually, his breath dispersed into the thin air, and as the white ash gradually settled over the glowing embers. The highlands of Caledon were prostrate with grief. Young men and old were in mourning. The common people and the leaders of the country all lamented. The women who dwelt with Evanes's stream tore their hair and beat their breasts. Malaga's father, lay prone upon the ground, his white hair and age-worn face begrimed with dust, complaining bitterly that he had lived too long. As for his mother, knowing full well the dreadful thing she had done, with her own guilty hand she exacted punishment from herself, driving a sword through her own body. Nobody survives in this. Though the gods had given me 100 mouths and 100 tongues, poetic genius, and all helicon for my province, still I could not adequately express the sad laments of Malaga's unhappy sisters. Heedless of what was seemly, they beat their bruised breasts, and while their brother's body remained, fondled and cherished it, kissing the poor corpse, and the bier on which it lay. When his limbs had been reduced to ashes, they gathered these together, and clasped them to their breasts. Then they flung themselves on the ground by his grave, and embracing his tombstone, bathed the name inscribed there with their tears. At last, Diana was content with the disasters which had befallen the house of Parphaon. She raised the girls into the air, all except Gorge and great Alcmene's daughter-in-law, causing feathers to sprout from their bodies, and stretching wings along their arms. She gave them horny beaks, and when she had so changed them, dispatched them into the sky. Greek gods, everybody! That's it, remember, all this misery literally caused by the gods. I'm going to drink some water. Meanwhile, Theseus, having played his part in the joint enterprise, was making his way back to Athena's city, where Erechtheus once ruled, when Achelous, swollen with rain, blocked his path and forced him to delay. I assume that's a river, not a person. "Come into my house, great Athenian," said the river god, not the river itself, "and do not trust yourself to my greedy flood. These waters, as they roar in their slanting channel, are wont to sweep away massive tree trunks and hurl rocks along. I have seen great stables, cattle and all, swept from their sites upon my banks, and then the oxen could make no use of their sturdy strength, nor could the horses use their speed. Many a young man, too, has been drowned in these turbulent waters, when melting snows from their mountains have swollen my torrent. It is safer to walk quietly, till my river runs within its usual limits, and, reduced to a slender stream, is contained in its own channel." Aegeus' son agreed with the river, and replied, "I shall take your advice, Achelous, and seek shelter in your home." He did as he said, and entered the caves built of porous pumice and rough tufa stone. The ground was damp with soft moss, the ceiling roofed with alternate bands of conch shells and shells of purple fish. Now, the sun had travelled 2/3 of the way across the sky when Theseus and his companions took their places on the couches. On one side of Theseus was the son of Ixion, on the other, the hero Lexus from Troezen, whose hair was already streaked with white at the temples. Others too were there whom the Arcadian river god had deemed worthy of sharing the honour of Theseus's company, for Achelous was highly delighted to have so distinguished a guest. The nymphs, barefooted at once set out the tables, and loaded them with good things. Afterwards, when the banquet had been cleared away, they served wine in jewelled cups. Then Theseus, bravest of heroes, looked out over the waters that stretched before his eyes, and, pointing with his finger, said, "Tell me, what place is this? What is the name of that island? Though it looks like more than one." "What you see is not one island," answered the river. "There are 5 there, but the distance prevents your seeing that they are separate. Do not be astonished at what Diana did to Calydon, for when she was scorned. For these used to be naiads, but on one occasion, after they had made a sacrifice of 10 bullocks, they invited all the other rural deities to their festival, and proceeded with their festival dances, quite forgetting me. I swelled with rage till my waters were as full as they are when at their fullest. Then, with heart and flood equally ruthless, I tore apart forest from forest, field from field, and in my swirling tide swept down to the sea, the nymphs and their dancing floor. Then, at last, too late did they remember me, my waves and those of the ocean split that piece of land apart and divided it into as many positions as you see islands dotted over the ocean. They are called the Echiniades, but there is one, look, which you see for yourself, lies far apart from the others, and it is dear to me. The sailors call it Perimele. I fell in love with that girl and robbed her of her maidenhood, a thing which outraged her father, Hippodamus, so much that he hurled his daughter from the cliff into the sea, intending to kill her. But I caught her up and supported her as she swam. As I did, I prayed to Neptune, "You whose lot has fallen the kingdom of the restless sea, next in importance to that of heaven, lend us your aid, great god of the Tridents, and grant a place, I pray, to you, to the one drowned by her father's cruelty, or else let her become herself a place." While I was still speaking, land, newly formed, embraced her floating limbs, and a massive island materialized on top of her changed body. His story finished, the river god fell silent. The whole company was stirred by the miracle he had related. But Ixion's son laughed at them for believing the tale. Arrogant and contemptuous of the gods as he was, he challenged his host. "Your story is pure invention, Achelous," he said. "You put too much faith in the power of the gods. If you think they can give and take away the shapes of things..." All were dumbfounded, and disapproved of such words. But before anyone else could speak, Lelix, ripe in years and wisdom, broke in. The power of heaven is measureless and knows no bounds. Whatever the gods wish is at once achieved. Here is a story which will conceive you. Hang on a minute. This is Star Wars. This is the line. You know, don't try to frighten me with your ancient tales, Lord Vader. This is Star Wars. I can't believe it. George Lucas ripped off Ovid. In the hill country of Phrygia there is an oak, growing close beside a linden tree, and a low wall surrounds them both. I have seen the spot myself, for Pythias sent me on a mission to that land, where his father Pelops was once a king. Not far off is a stagnant pool. Once it was a habitable country, but now it has become a stretch of water, haunted by marsh birds, divers and coots. Jupiter visited this place disguised as a mortal, and Mercury, the god who carries the magic wand, laid aside his wings and accompanied his father. The two gods went to 1,000 homes, looking for somewhere to rest, and found 1,000 homes bolted and barred against them. However, one house took them in. It was indeed a humble dwelling, roofed with thatch and reeds from the marsh, but a good-hearted old woman, Baucis by name, and her husband Philemon, who was... Philemon is... What is a Philemon? It's a leaf, right? It's a plant, I think. Who was the same age as his wife, had been married in that cottage in their youth, and had grown grey in it together. By confessing their poverty and accepting it contentedly, they had eased the hardship of their lot. It made no difference in that house whether you asked for master or servant. The two of them were the entire household. The same people gave the orders and carried them out. So, when the heaven dwellers reached the humble homes and, stooping down, entered its low doorway, the old man set chairs for them and invited them to rest their weary limbs. Baucis bustled up anxiously to throw a rough piece of cloth over the chairs and stirred up the warm ashes of the hearth, fanning the remains of yesterday's fire, feeding it with leaves and chips of dried bark, and blowing on it till it burst into flames. Then the old woman took down finely split sticks and dry twigs which were hanging from the roof, and broke them into small pieces, and pushed them under her little pot. Her husband had brought in some vegetables from his carefully watered garden, and these she stripped of their outer leaves. Philemon took a two-pronged fork and lifted down a side of smoked bacon that was hanging from the blackened rafters. Then he cut off a small piece of their long-cherished meat and boiled it till it was tender in the bubbling water. Meanwhile, the old couple chattered on to pass the time, and kept their guests from noticing the delay. There was a beechwood bowl there, hanging from a nail by its curved handle, which was filled with warm water, and the visitors washed in this to refresh themselves. On a couch with frame and legs of willow wood lay a mattress stuffed with soft sedge-grass. Baucis and Philemon covered this with the cloths which they used to put out only on solemn holidays. Who's phoning me? Hang on. The Lego stuff is over, coming to an end. I thought it was going to a bigger core. Interesting. Of course, everybody knows about the Lego scandal going on. My brother tells me it's coming to an end. I've lost where I was. Let's just start it. On a couch with frame and legs of willow wood lay a mattress, stuffed with soft sedge-grass. Baucis and Philemon covered this with the cloths which they used to put out only on solemn holidays. Even so, the stuff was old and cheap, a good match for the willow couch. Then the gods took their places for the meal. Old Bacchus tucked up her dress and, with shaky hands, set the table down in front of them. One of its 3 legs was shorter than the other, but she pushed a tile in below to make it the same height. When she had inserted this and so levelled a sloping surface, she wiped over the table with some stalks of fresh mint. Then she placed upon the board a mottled berry, which honest Minerva loves, wild cherries picked in the autumn, and preserved in the less of wine, endives and radishes, and a piece of cheese, and eggs, lightly roasted in ashes not too hot. All these were set out in clay dishes, and after they had been served, a flagon raised with a raised paton, just as much silver as their dinner surface, was set on the table, and beechwood cups lined inside with yellow wax. After a short while, the half provided them with food piping hot, and the wine, which was of no great age, was sent round again. Then it was set aside for a little, to make way for the dessert, which consisted of nuts, a mixture of figs, and wrinkled dates, plums and fragrant apples in shallow baskets, and black grapes just gathered. A shining honeycomb was set in the midst. I thought these people were poor! A shining honeycomb was set in the midst of these good things, and above all, there was cheerful company and bustling hospitality, far beyond their means. As the dinner went on, the old man and women saw that the flagon, as often as it was emptied, refilled itself of its own accord, and that the wine was automatically replenished. At the sight of this miracle, Baucis and Philemon were awed and afraid. Timidly stretching out their hands in prayer, they begged the gods' indulgence for a poor meal without any elaborate preparations. They had a single goose, which acted as guardian of their little croft, in honour of their divine visitors. They were making ready to kill the bird, but, with the help of its swift wings, it eluded its owners for some time, and tired them out, for age made them slow. At last it seemed to take refuge with the gods themselves, who declared that it should not be killed. "We are gods," they said, "and this wicked neighbourhood is going to be punished as it richly deserves. But you will be allowed to escape this disaster. All you have to do is leave your home and climb up the steep mountain side with us." The two old people did as they were told, and leaning on their sticks, struggled up the long slope. When they were a bow-shot distance from the top, they looked round and saw all the rest of their country drowned in marshy waters, only their own home left standing. As they gazed in astonishment, and wept for the fate of their people, their old cottage, which had been small even for two, was changed into a temple. Marble columns took the place of its wooden supports. The thatch grew yellow till the roof seemed to be made of gold. The doors appeared magnificently adorned with carvings, and marble paved the earthen floor. Then Saturn spoke in majestic tones. "Tell me, my good old man. And you..." Did I skip a page? No, I didn't. "And you, who are a worthy wife for your good husband, what would you like for me?" Philemon and Baucis consulted together for a little, and then the old man told the gods what they both wished. "We ask to be your priests, to serve your shrine. And since we live in happy companionship all our lives, we pray that death may carry us off together at the same instant, so that I may never see my wife's funeral, and she may never have to bury me." Their prayer was granted, and they looked after the temple as long as they lived. How long till the next chapter? We've been kind of tired of this. We'll survive. Then, one day, bowed down with the weight of years, they were standing before the sacred steps, taking of all that had happened there, when Baucis saw Philemon beginning to put forth leaves, and old Philemon saw Baucis growing leafy too. He's a plant. When the treetops were already growing over their two faces, they exchanged their last words while they could, and cried simultaneously, "Goodbye, my dear one." As they spoke, the bark grew over and concealed their lips. The Pythonian peasant still points out the trees growing there, side by side. Trees that were once two bodies. This tale was told me by responsible old men, who had nothing to gain by deceiving me. Indeed, I myself have seen the reefs hanging on the branches, and have hung up fresh ones, saying, "Whom the gods love are gods themselves, and those who have worshipped should be worshipped too." This was the end of his story. Both the storyteller and the tale he told excited the whole company, but Theseus most of all, as he was clamouring to hear more of the wondrous deeds of the gods. The river of Calydon raised himself on his elbow and addressed the hero in these words. "There are some, bravest Theseus, whose shapes have been changed just once, and has then remained permanently altered. Others again have the power to change into several forms. Take, for instance, Proteus, the god who dwells in the sea and encircles the earth. People have seen him at one time change into the shape of a young man, at another transformed into a lion. Sometimes he used to appear to them as a raging wild boar, or again as a snake, which they shrank from touching, or else horns transformed him into a bull. Often he could be seen as a stone, or a tree. Sometimes he presented the appearance of running water, and became a river. Sometimes he was the very opposite, when he turned into fire. The wife of Autolycus, who was Erysichthon's daughter, had the same power. Her father was a man who scorned the gods, and never made any offerings of incense on the altars. He even reported to have used his sacrilegious axe on the trees of Ceres' grove, violating the ancient woodlands with its blade. Among these trees there stood a huge oak, which had grown sturdy and strong in the course of years. A forest in itself, hung round with wreaths and garlands of votive tablets, tributes for prayers that had been granted. Under this tree the Dryads often held their festive dances. Often they joined hands in a circle and embraced its trunk, whose circumference measured 15 cubits in height too. It towered above the other trees as much as they did above the grassy sword. Yet this did not deter Erysichthon from wielding his axe against it. He ordered his servants to cut down the sacred tree, and when he saw them hesitate to carry out his demands, the scoundrel snatched the axe from one of the men and shouted, "Should this tree be itself a goddess, and not just a tree the goddess loves, still its leafy top will be brought down to earth." As he uttered these words, he held his weapon poised, ready to strike the trunk obliquely. The oak tree of Ceres trembled and groaned. At the same time, the leaves and acorns began to turn white, and the long branches lost their colour. Then, when his impious hand had made its gash in the trunk, blood flowed out from where the bark was split open, just as it pours from the severed neck of some mighty bull, slain before the altars as an offering. Everyone stood still in horrified amazement. Out of all the company, one man dared to prevent the sacrilege, to stop the cruel axe. Thessalian Erysichthon glared at him. "Take that as a reward for your pious thoughts." He stormed and swung his axe against the man instead of the tree, lopping off his head. Then he turned again to the oak and dealt it blow after blow. Meanwhile, from the heart of the tree a voice was heard saying, "I who dwell within this tree am a nymph, whom Ceres dearly loves. I warn you with my dying breath that punishment for your wickedness is at hand. That thought comforts me in death." But Erysichthon persisted in his criminal action. When the tree had at length been weakened by innumerable blows, ropes were attached to the trunk and it was brought crashing down, creating havoc in the wood as it fell by reason of its great weight. All her sister dryads, sorely distressed at the loss which the grove and they themselves had suffered, dressed themselves in black garments and mournfully approached Ceres, begging that Erysichthon should be punished. That most beautiful goddess consented. Nodding her head, she made the fields laden with heavy harvests tremble as she devised a punishment which could have which would have made its victim an object of pity indeed, if he had not forfeited all men's pity by his deeds. She planned to torment him with deadly hunger. What was the guy's name? Oh, completely unpronounceable. Since destiny does not allow Ceres and hunger to meet, she could not approach this creature herself, but I guess because she's a god, she can't be hungry. But she gave orders to a rustic Orid, one of the mountain spirits. There is a place, she said, which lies far off in the icy land of Scythia, a gloomy barren spot where the earth knows nothing of crops or trees. It is the home of sluggish chill, of pallor and ague, and ravening hunger lives there too. Go then, bid hunger bury herself in the wicked stomach of this impious wretch. Tell her to fight and overcome my powers of nourishment, and to let no amount of food defeat her. Do not be frightened at the length of the journey. Take my chariot and my dragons, and drive them through the air. Ceres then handed over her car, and the Oread was borne through the skies in the borrowed chariot. She alighted in Scythia, and there unyoked her dragons on the summit of a rocky mountain, which the inhabitants call Caucasus. She went to look for hunger, whom she found in a stony field, tearing up a few scant grasses with her nails and her teeth. The creature's face was colourless, hollow-eyed, her hair uncared for her lips bleached and cracked. Scabrous sores encrusted her throat. Her skin was hard and transparent, revealing her inner organs. The brittle bones stuck out beneath her hollow loins, and instead of a stomach, she had only a place for one. Her breast, hanging loose, looked as if it were held in position only by the framework of her spine. Her joints seemed large in contrast to her skinny limbs. The curve of her knees made a real swelling, and her ankle bones formed protuberances that were all out of proportion. When the Oread saw her, she did not venture to go up close, but delivered the goddess's orders from a distance. And, in a very short time, though she had only just come, and though she remained a good way off, she seemed herself to feel the pains of hunger. Turning her team, she drove the dragons back through the air to Haemonia. Although she is always opposed to Ceres' activities, hunger obeyed the goddess's instructions. The wind carried her through the air till she came to the house she had been told to visit. Immediately, she entered the bedroom of the scoundrel Eriscyphon, finding him sound asleep, for it was night time. Very odd thing to put in brackets there. She flung both her arms around him, insinuated herself into her victim, breathing into his lips, his throat, his heart, and spread famishing hunger through his hollow veins. When she had carried out her orders, she left the fertile world again and returned to her poverty-stricken home and her accustomed haunts. Eriscyphon was still slumbering peacefully, soothed by the wings of the gentle god of sleep. But he dreamed that he was feasting, and chewed uselessly at nothing, grinding his teeth together, and cheating himself by swallowing a mere pretence of food. Indeed, of a banquet he gulped down, instead of a banquet he gulped down insubstantial air, all to no purpose. When he awoke, he was furiously hungry. His famished jaws and burning stomach were utterly at the mercy of his cravings. Without delay, he gave orders for all the foodstuffs that earth and air and seed provide to be brought to him, complained of hunger when the laden tables... I got another text. It's a Twitter link, one moment. What's it gonna be? I don't want the app. Go away. Oh, fuck. Oh my god. Apparently there's riots in London. Right, well, I hate mobile phones. Sorry about that. I should really turn off my phone. When he awoke, he was furiously hungry. His famished jaws and burning stomach were utterly at the mercy of his cravings. Without delay, he gave orders for all the foodstuffs that earth and air and sea provide to be brought to him, complained of hunger when the laden tables were set before him. I'm getting hungry now. And in the midst of feasting, sought still more feasts. Supplies which would have satisfied whole cities or an entire nation were not enough for him, and the more he ate, the more he desired. As the sea receives rivers from all over the earth, and yet always has room for more, and drinks up the waters from distant lands, or as greedy flames never refuse nourishment, but burn up countless made... I'm not going to risk it. Made hungrier by the very abundance of supplies, and requiring more the more they are given. So the jaws of the scoundrel Ericson welcomed all the provisions that were offered, and at the same time asked for more. All the food he consumed only excited his desire for food, and by eating he continually produced an aching void. Now, thanks to this hunger, to the bottomless pit that was his stomach, his family fortunes had dwindled away, but still his dreadful hunger remained, not diminished in the slightest. His burning appetite was unabated. At length, when he had eaten up all his wealth, he was left with only his daughter, a girl who deserved to have had a better parent. In his penniless state, he sold her too. But she was a girl of spirit, and rebelled against having a master. Stretching out her hands over the nearby waters, she cried, "You who robbed me of my maidenhood, and have your reward, rescue me from slavery." Neptune was the one who had the reward of which she spoke, and he did not scorn her prayer. Although her owner, coming along behind, had seen the girl only a moment before, the god changed her shape, gave her the face of a man, and dressed her in fisherman's clothes. Her master came up, and looking straight at her, said, "You there, concealing your dangling hooks with tiny bits of bait, you with the rod in your hands." He was happy. I thought he was accusing him of stealing his daughter. "You there," let's read it again. "You there, concealing your dangling hooks with tiny bits of bait, you with the rod in your hands. I wish you a calm sea and gullible fishes that never notice the hook till they are caught. If you will tell me where the girl is, who was standing on the shore just now, with her hair all disordered and dressed in cheap clothes. I saw her on the sands, but tell me, where is she? For her footprints go no further." The other, realizing that what the god had done for her had been successful, was delighted that she herself should be asked where she was. In reply to her master's question, she said, "Excuse me, whoever you are, I have never taken my eyes off this pool, and have been entirely occupied with my fishing. To remove any doubts you may have, I swear, so may the god of the sea assist me in my livelihood, that no one but myself has been on this shore for a long time, and no woman has set foot here." The man believed her, and turning round, walked away over the sand, cheated of his slave. Then the girl's true shape was restored to her. Her father, when he perceived that his daughter could undergo such transformations, often sold her to different masters, and she escaped in the form of a horse, or a bird, or again as an ox, or a stag, thus obtaining provisions, dishonestly, for her gluttonous father. However, when in the violence of his malady he had consumed all that was offered, and had thusly merely aggravated his grievous sickness, the wretch began to bite and gnaw at his own limbs, and fed his body by eating it away. But why do I waste time over tales of other people if I myself, my young friend, have the power to alter my body? Though the number of shapes I can assume is limited, sometimes I appear as you see me now, sometimes I change into a snake, or again, I become a bull, the leader of the herd, whose strength lies in his horns. Horns, I say, for I had two while I could, but now, as you see for yourself, one side of my forehead has lost its weapon, and his words gave place to groans. Okay, that's the end of the chapter. Gonna call it quits there. Short reading stream. But frankly, it's too hot to sit here all day. Where's my bookmark gone? It's over here on the table. But a good bit of fun. This was a fun chapter. We got the story of Icarus and sort of some story of some heroes against the Caledonian Bull. I could have sworn it was Hercules who had slain the Caledonian Bull. Was I wrong? Perhaps it was someone else. Perhaps it was... This is what I get for sitting down for too long. Ooh. And it's a pretty dead hour this time, so I suppose we'll call it there. And I don't know what I'll stream next time. I should probably do some... what do you call it? I should probably do some drawing next time. That would be a good idea. I haven't been working on my comic. I should probably do that. Although I still haven't finished that drawing of Ace in a suit. Frankly, I'm terrified of streaming it. I fear if I try to, it's going to be a disastrous stream, because twice I've tried, and twice it's been a disastrous stream. But we're going to call it there. Thanks for watching, and I still haven't made an outro. I really need to make myself an outro. Thanks for the stream. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Lots of fun reading streams. But here we have reached the end, and it's time to say goodbye.